I'm the scat man. I'm the scat man.
Welcome to NHL Puck Props presented by Sports Interaction with 14-year NHL vet Carlo Colaiacovo. Early winner, but Vancouver team total, empty net goal, turns into a 2-3 night. Yeah. But the Spurgeon plus 165 really helped things out, right? That was
that was a nice find by you, for sure.
I didn't know it'd be his 500th point either.
Well, you probably should have been on top of the power play point too, because that probably would have paid juicy.
I know, but there's a good point, right? Like, do you go the power play point when you can get 165 for a point?
Mm-hmm.
Like 165 is a pretty good number, right?
That's true. Yeah, for just a single point.
And power play, like you watch that Leaf game, like they didn't want to call penalties. Like it's not like the game was chippy, but like it was just one penalty aside. It seems to be was scoring down. All the unders hitting last night, all total sitting at 5.5, basically. That's kind of the hockey we're seeing right now, no?
Yeah, it's kind of boring.
It is.
I mean, I was a guy that used to love jumping on the power play point round robin parlays, and there's not many power plays across the league that are riding hot right now. There's a lot of lackluster, games, plays, referees, just there's been lulls right now in these games. I mean, we saw the whole board go under the total yesterday, 5-0.
We haven't seen, we didn't see both teams to score 3 goals.
Yeah.
2 shutouts, one almost shutout, almost 3 shutouts, basically.
Yeah. So it's been, you know what it is? It's like, it's the end of January. It's a week away from a 10-day break for these guys. I would imagine a lot of them are coming to play, but they're just grinding their game out instead of just like showing up to play, knowing that. And I've been there, you got a break around the corner. You're like talking to your friends about, different plans that you got and whatever vacation you go, how many people are coming to join you? Is family going to be there? The guys and their wives. It's like, it's a time of the year where you're anticipating something coming and maybe you're not at your best, or, it's the midway point of the season for you guys. They've played 40 plus games. Some teams are at the 50 game point. So I don't know what the deal is with the referees, why they're not calling the same amount of penalties. But I mean, I'm just talking in a Leaf perspective. The Leafs are the worst team in the league at drawing penalties. They never do them.
Which is insane, right? Like high-end talent should be able to draw penalties. That's where it gets.
Yeah.
Willie Nylander could have drawn a couple penalties, didn't get it. He had a couple posts.
Yeah.
That first line continues to struggle. Pontus Holmberg should probably not be anywhere near a top 6 role. Max Domi continues to struggle. Morgan Riley just it's a frustrating time, and you're one of the more level-headed Leaf fans out there because you see the roller coaster of up and down, and then this team will rip off 5 wins. But right now, with the way they're losing and all like the injuries,
it's not even the
you're
injuries.
a little worried right now. I know, but like it's bad hockey. It's a bad product right now.
Look, I think it's safe to say and agree that this team is different, right? Based on what we've seen with this group under a Sheldon Keefe team that, crazy power play, crazy offensive numbers, high scoring games, they've changed, right? They get great goaltending. They play a better style of defense. But the concerning thing for me is the games that they go and the stretches they go through where they just have a hard time scoring. It's not something you're used to seeing with this team that has this type of talent. And I think Mike Johnson did a good job explaining it, that this crop of forwards in their whole tenure here has never been through this type of stretch. I mean, mediocre power play. This team's always had a top 5, top 10 power play in the league. And, they've been one of the highest scoring teams in the league during those 10 years too. So it's weird, man. I know Berube is all about team and structure and, accountability, but what's the explanation of them struggling to score as much as they have been in the stretches that they've showed? I don't know.
Matthews kind of had a goal yesterday. Got beat clean off the draw. Tipped one straight home. Well done on the PK.
Yeah, on his own net.
Yeah. Hell of a tip, though. Hell of a tip. Good hand-eye. It was an interesting game. But, yeah, they got beat up by that fourth line. That shore line kind of dominated multiple lines from the Leafs. But it was another one. And like you said, they needed that game because now they go out on the West Coast road trip. Got to face Edmonton, who's been the hottest team in hockey. Gets McDavid back. Going to be a rough stretch if they can't pull something together with the noise over the break in Canada, especially in the province, dealing with some losing. So good day to everybody there in the chat. Been a rough slide, I'm sure, like just outside of my card, just NHL as we mentioned it. I mean, it's been kind of a slog. Unders are probably the way to be going right now, but that's obviously adjusted in the price we're seeing. Right off the top, Daddy Sharp says maybe a good teaching point to see persist through a cold streak. Absolutely get to that at the end. And it's one of the things like you see at the beginning of NHL season. You see lots of guys coming out being like, all right, going to do hockey betting. You see him on X, and then you don't see him at the end of the season. It's one of the hardest sports to go coast to coast and continue to have a bankroll. And there needs to be edges that you can find throughout the season. But as we saw with Stacks, those edges can dry up quickly for sure. There's not many.
Couple of dad trip mentions in the chat. Maybe they need more dad trips to pump the boys up, and the Shark dads are on the trip tonight to Seattle.
Think about all them Swedish dads, all the Lunds.
Oh, man, that's true.
Right?
The Swedish dads know how to put on a clinic, man. I witnessed it firsthand in my time in Detroit where they love their beer. Love their beer.
And Tim Powell brings up a good point. I shit on Bennett. Guess what he did? He scored a goal. He had about 17 shots. I'm really good at that. Sharks dad, we're at home game versus Pittsburgh and won. Yeah, waiting to see what happens with Granlund. He's dealing with that illness. We'll see how it goes. A couple things before we get to some plays I want to fire off at the top of you. Marc-Andre Fleury returns to the Bell Center. Be his last run there on his retirement tour here. What do you think? What do you think that means to them? And is there money on the board for the Wild, who are one of the best road teams in hockey?
Who would have thought?
They're not a bad team. Like they've played without Kaprizov. They didn't look terrible. I still like that top line. They're plus money dog tonight.
Yeah, who would have thought? I mean, favorable matchup for the Leafs without Kaprizov coming off a 4-day break, and I didn't know the Minnesota Wild were the best road team in the league until after they won yesterday, and that stat was revealed on the broadcast. Maybe they do deserve the respect that they're not getting right now in the league, because the road's a tough place to play, man, especially when you're going from building to building on a nightly basis. So shout out to them. The Fleury thing, like, look, this isn't his first rodeo back into this place, so I don't really know how much it means to him, given the fact that it could be his last one. Maybe he's a little bit more sentimental for him. But I don't think he wants to make a big deal about it. Like he's not going to want to do his farewell lap afterwards and want to get a big presentation before the game. Look, Marc-Andre Fleury is a competitor, man. That's why he's still playing in the game. He's a lovable competitor. He still loves the game. He wants to have fun playing the game and playing the position that he plays. And I just think that his energy tonight, based on his personality, could just be enough to, maybe help this Minnesota team win another road game.
Was he wasn't your junior goalie, was he?
He was, yeah, in Halifax.
Did he prank you at all?
Not back then, no. Actually, funny story of Marc-Andre Fleury is on game days, this guy wouldn't nap, or maybe it was just this one day he didn't nap. And the hotel that we stayed at was attached to a mall. And in the walkway from the hotel to the mall, they have like little tournament booths that they had set up, and one of them was like a mini hockey setting. And Marc-Andre Fleury was there playing mini hockey with random kids, random fans in the day of the game. So like that's just who he is, and what he enjoys, right? It's just the interactions, having fun, meeting new people, having fun with people. And he's carried that into his NHL career.
And Jakub Dobeš has been confirmed for the Habs in that game.
Ooh,
kind of off the mark.
Dobeš
He's not the Dobeš of the first 4 games or whatever,
right.
the record pace. He's kind of reverted back to what people would expect him. Last thing I want to touch on before we get to the card: illnesses. San Jose, Philadelphia, Edmonton, Tampa Bay, Boston, Carolina, Detroit. It's pretty much league wide right now. Yeah. And I've been looking at the last week, trying to look at goals per period, because I think there's maybe a slight edge in that market, because right now the third period is always the shortest, because that's when you get empty net goals. That's how it's priced. But right now, the first period has the best value per edge in terms of what's happening right now. And do you think late scoring is drying up because of guys kind of playing through some stuff?
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I never really thought of it that way. Players are hockey players are warriors, right? The majority of them embrace the idea of gutting it out when you're not 100%, whether it's battling through an injury or battling through a weird circumstance of the day, or even just battling through an illness or a sickness. Players, when they get dressed and put their uniform on, they don't want to make whatever they're bothered with an excuse. And so, but sometimes, like, it's pretty evident, as much as you battle through it, you don't feel or look like yourself. And depending on what this illness is that's going around the National Hockey League, and I don't think any of us should be surprised, this is the time of year where we see this stuff go viral. Maybe it does. I mean, I think it definitely had an effect on the Philadelphia Flyers yesterday, where it was the home game on Monday where it was revealed that a lot of the players were dealing with stuff. But it almost felt like in yesterday's game was when they were feeling it, because, it was a completely one-sided affair for New Jersey. So, yeah, maybe that does play a factor in what you brought up there with all the teams that you believe are going through something like this.
Yeah, so you could bet on first period being the highest scoring. That's about plus 320. It's a 4-way market. The tie exists. And then the tie. So right now, over the last 7 days, the first period is the highest scoring period 27% of the time, and the tie is hitting at 27% of the time, where actually the third period is hitting at the lowest rate per the odds. So it's a big difference between what the odds are in that market than what's happened over the last 7 days. Small sample, but maybe slight edges on that first period. Something like around a 6.5% difference between the pricing and what's happening right now.
I think the pumpers are horny for the plays that we have. So
I know, but we got to diagnose the league. Let's go.
No, I know.
Philly team total under 2.5 plus money. Unders. Why not? I think this is a better move. I think this is a better move than the money line. The Islanders money line at like minus 120 are taking them in regulation. Philly blanked 5-0 last night. It was the second of a home and home. It's probably a difficult schedule spot where you go finish a home and home and then start a new game the next day. Owen Tippett exited. The illnesses are going around. Igor Zamula also didn't play. He's dealing with an illness. They were riding Sam Urson, who had been playing really well, so they'll probably like to go to Fedotov today. And Sorokin on the other side. I know Andy Francis calls this a scam team, but Sorokin, 4 straight games. The Islanders have won 5 straight. They have the number 4 point percentage in January. They have the number 1 penalty kill. And the New York Islanders opponents, 2 or fewer in 5 straight and 8 of their last 9. Looking at back-to-backs, Philly have not fared well this year. 1-7 straight up on the second of a back-to-back, including a 3-1 loss to New York just on January 24th as a plus 140 dog. So loss of Tippett, injuries, second of a back-to-back. They got Fedotov in there. Islanders should be able to play with the lead. I like the Islanders, but I think Philly team total under 2.5 at plus money is the way to go. Let's swing over to Chicago, Carolina. Interesting one. I heard Pat Maroon talking. Pat Maroon just showed up in Chicago, and they're like, Pat, what are you doing? I thought you're on IR. And that was before the Taylor Hall trade. And he's like, I don't know what's happening. I was just told to come here.
Nice.
Yeah, so then they shipped out Taylor Hall. So he kind of knew it. It was a funny story. But how about Jesper Kotkaniemi for a point at plus 125? He's playing on that Svechnikov Hall line. There are no Hall props. And this is a game that could get pretty one-sided pretty quickly, where I might see a little more playing time for this middle six line. And Kotkaniemi out of nowhere, points in 5 straight. I didn't see it. I didn't know that's where it came from. But what's your take on the Leaf from Chicago? I know Hall's played for a bunch of teams, and the revenge factor isn't as high. But, like, how this is such a quick turnaround from being traded to your team to facing him, no?
Yeah, it is. But, I mean, you kind of want to, most players kind of want to have it this way so that you get it over with right away instead of having to think about it. And for Taylor Hall, I don't know how much it really bothers him because, like, I think it plays a bigger factor in players that have been in one place in a long time. And then, like Steven Stamkos is a great example. His whole career is in Tampa, and he's got to go back to Tampa as a member of the Nashville Predators. Like, Taylor Hall has played on more than a handful of teams, so I don't know if it's that big of a deal to return to a team that you played on earlier in the year, because the way I would look at it for Taylor Hall is, man, I'm glad I'm out of Chicago. That place sucked, right? I mean, like, they weren't any good, and now he's on a Carolina team where they're good. They were good before he got there. They're even better now that him and Rantanen are there. And that's got to give players a new lease on life where, you know, they exit these bad situations and enter these amazing situations. So I don't really know if that's going to bother him that much to be playing against his former team.
Stick it to him, Hall. Let's get that line.
Yeah,
Plus 125.
maybe he might go out with a couple of his former teammates for dinner tonight, but during the game, I can't see it bothering him that much.
All right. Like to see that line get going. Hopefully they get a little more minutes playing with a lead. Washington, Ottawa. These two teams and the under have been absolutely insane. These two teams over their last 10 games combined, Carlo, have hit the under 19 times.
Wow.
They're 1-19 combined.
Wow.
19 to the under. And Linus Ullmark might be back. But if he's not, Leevi Merilainen's been great. Washington coming back from the West Coast road trip, kind of scary. Don't want to back him too much. But I think this is a spot where the under 5.5 is like minus 125. It's getting a little ridiculous. So let's go. Oh, excuse me.
God bless you.
Illness day to day. I was doing before you bet, and I lost my voice in the middle of my spot. It was the most embarrassing thing.
Oh, no way. That's the worst.
Yeah, it was awful, and it's this illness that's going around. Let's go 2 guys. Let's take a point on each side. Let's go Ovi under a point at this good number, plus 125. I think Strome should be the shortest guy because Ovi's still just camping on empty net goals. Let's be honest. Like, he has 3 points, or he's pointed in 3 of his last 11 games, and one of those was just an empty net goal. And we're going to go Batherson on the other side, under 0.5 points, minus 115, playing with David Perron out of nowhere.
He's back.
Oh, yeah, nice. He's back. But he's playing on a line with Josh Norris, who's been demoted to PP2. That offense can't get going. They're still playing competitive games. And it's one of those wishy-washy money lines where we saw it in the Toronto game versus Ottawa. Ottawa, minus 105 on the money line versus Washington, where you're like, that's a sneaky, like, running out to get Washington, right?
It is, but I think it's because there's anticipation that Linus Ullmark's going to return tonight.
And Washington coming back from that trip too, right? It's a perfect storm. But I think instead of hitting an under team totals, because as we saw in Vancouver yesterday, 3-1 games suck if you try both sides under 2.5. So let's go under a point on both sides. Ovi, Batherson. That's where I am with that. Let me know how you're betting that game as well.
They're both scoring tonight for sure.
He actually says put the entire covers team on IR. Not during Super Bowl lead-up week. We can't. It's nothing fun about this yet. The other game I had circled here was Kings, Tampa Bay, because you might as well just keep fading this Kings offense. I know Drew Doughty showed back up. That's amazing. But the Kings team total under 2.5 is even money. Now, I don't want to bet it too much because a lot of it revolves around having a good Vasilevsky in net, but he's coming off he missed that last game because of the illness. Right? So you think we should stay off that one, but I mean the Kings have gone under this number in 10 of their last 11 games.
Yeah, well,
Tampa Bay's been pretty crappy.
I don't really know what the right answer is here, but we are, we're victims to trends, right? I mean, it's a trendy thing right now. I think if you go back in LA's recent stretch here and look at the goalies they've played against, are all of them great goaltenders? I mean, Jonas Johansson, yeah, he's a downgrade from Vasilevsky, but I mean, they still got to find a way to score, and that's what they're struggling doing right now. So I'm always a trendy guy. I follow trends. And if I lose because the trend ended, well, at least I can say to myself, okay, it was a nice run, versus when I'm trying to guess when the trend is going to end. And then like, say I'm like, oh, tonight's tonight, LA, they're going to finally score 3 goals. And then they still score 1 or 2. You're kind of kicking yourself because you didn't follow the trend.
Yeah.
So that's the way I'm looking at it.
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen like a competitive hockey team not score 3 goals in 10 of 11. That's a wild stretch right there. So there's producer Mick saying, stay tuned for NBA prop picks powered by EV Analytics with Adam and John coming up in 7 minutes right after this. And last one, I threw it in at the end because the boys were talking about it, and I hate when I miss it because I don't give the West Coast games as much attention when I'm looking through stuff. It's Anaheim funnel shot defense time. Speaking of trends, Mackenzie Weegar, 3+ shots, plus 140. Why? Because he's their number 1 defenseman, and they're facing Anaheim, who just
that's true. Give up a lot of shots to D-man.
It's the shots to defense one. If you're ever looking for one, if you're ever looking to fade Anaheim, that's the angle there. That's it right there. I can't pronounce your name, but any shot props today. I've been brutal on the shots.
Young Swifty. He's a young Swifty.
Oh, young Swifty. There you go. Look at you being able to read handles so well. But yeah, just the Uyghur one. But to go back before we get out, we got to get producer Mick out of here. He's going to jump over there. I might have to finish things up here. Right off the top, how do you navigate cold streaks? You got to isolate things. You got to figure out, like, did you lose your edge? Are you still betting prices you shouldn't be betting? Right? Like these stacks. The double stacks have been absolutely brutal. Off. Losing money on that. Gotta change that up. Are you betting markets they usually don't bet? I've been betting shots on goals. Usually haven't been doing it. They haven't been profitable of late. Kind of laying off that. You kind of just have to minimize. Like if you're like, don't start chasing. Obviously, that's the easiest thing. Don't start chasing. Try to find some big win tickets to get that money back. That money's gone. You need to start from today and just go there. Practice, like work
build
on
it back up.
No, exactly. Realize that it's going to take some time to get that money back. It's not going to be a one-day thing. Take your time. Plan it out for over 4 days. Look how you're going to do over 4 days. Start with a smaller bankroll. If it's deposit season, get back to maybe reverting smaller unit size. It's different. Try to win one day and move on from there. And FOMO's a terrible thing. Like, I'm putting out these plays. These are my plays that I bet on. You don't have to do that. Use the information that you get maybe to make your own bets. Learn something in the chat. Learn something from the show. Find your own bets, because at the end of the day, you're the one that has to live with losing your own money, which sucks, because there's nothing worse than losing your own money and blaming other people for it. So
yeah,
I know it's tough. But as Carlo said right off the top, if you missed the show, if you're just tuning in now, Carlo had a great point about where the season is right now and where some of these players' heads might be with I was going to say Puerto Plata, but like the Bahamas, but like around the corner, like they get a 2-week break. That's a massive break, man. Like that is a big break. So it sucks because it's not a fun week to bet, or another 10 days to bet hockey, and then we're off for 2 weeks. So there's going to be some withdrawal in hockey betting, but like don't overdo it now going into the break because it's slowing down as we see with these totals falling. But let's leave it at that. Those are the cards. Let me know in the chat if you need anything else. I'm here. He's here. NHL Puck Props presented by Sports Interaction. I'm Josh Ingles. He's Carlo Colaiacovo. We'll be back here tomorrow at 10 a.m. Stay tuned for John, who's back from the IR. Subscribe, like, comment, do all that. Producer Mick's still there. We'll see you back here tomorrow.
Ciao.